Hello everyone, how are you? I'm Bruna, and this is your channel for Turkish series summaries. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so yet.
In the last episode of the series, Hira decided to start a new life with her baby, away from everyone. The episode begins 6 years later, with Orhun's hearing. Orhun's hearing was held again. A video proving Orhun's innocence was presented to the court. The court examined the video and determined that the person who killed Perihan was not Orhun, and that another man had killed her. After 6 years, Orhun regained his freedom. Orhun's innocence was proven, and he was released from prison. Orhun is packing his belongings in prison and thinking big things. Orhun didn't forget to put Hira's photo in his suitcase. Orhun left after saying goodbye to the other prisoners in the ward. As Orhun walks through the prison corridors, Hira's voices echo in his ears. Orhun's love for Hira hasn't diminished at all in 6 years. At the end of the corridor, Orhun met a lawyer named Defne. Orhun hugged Defne and said, "I'm grateful to you. You saved me from prison." Orhun said to Defne, "You made a great effort for me. Thank you very much." Defne's lawyer found the video proving Orhun's innocence. Orhun called his man Erhan and started talking to him. Orhun asked Erhan, "Have you found any trace of Hira?" Erhan told Orhun that they still hadn't found any trace of Hira. As Orhun was asking about Hira on the phone, the lawyer felt a little uneasy. In this case, the lawyer likes Orhun. Immediately after Orhun's innocence was proven, he ordered his men to investigate Hira. On the other hand, Hira, a man and a little girl, are spending time in a forested area. This little girl is Hira and Orhun's daughter, but the man next to Hira knows the girl's father. The man's name is Yeka, and he is a wealthy, rich man. On the other hand, Orhun is talking on the phone with his man Erhan outside the prison. Orhun told Erhan, "Look for a woman named Juliet in France. She knows where Hira is." At that moment, the lawyer's phone rang, and it was Afife calling. Afife is happy that her son has been saved and is eagerly waiting for Orhun. Orhun and the lawyer returned home. On the other hand, Hira, Yeka, and the girl finished their walk in the forest. Yeka, Hira, and the girl returned home. On the other hand, Afife anxiously waits for Orhun to arrive from the balcony of the house. After some time, Orhun entered the Demirhanlı house by car. Orhun was saddened to see his house again, from which he had been absent for 6 years. But Hira's absence deepens Orhun's sorrow even more. Orhun sees dreams of Hira everywhere in the house. Orhun and Afif hugged in the large room of the house. Afif said to Orhun, "I'm so happy that your innocence has been proven." Orhun said to Afife, "I will continue my life from where I left off." Afif introduced her loyal servant to the Sultan. Afif thanked the lawyer named Defne. At that moment, Orhun's phone rang, and Orhun went to his office. Orhun is talking on the phone with his man named Erhan. Erhan told Orhun that the woman named Juliet doesn't know where Hira is. Orhun ordered Erhan to search for Hira everywhere, in the country and abroad. Orhun took Hira's ring from his jacket pocket and began to think deeply. Orhun started remembering the memories he had with Hira in the past. On the other side, the housemaid is feeding Hira's little daughter. Hira is preparing dessert for her daughter in the house's kitchen. The home's TV news channel is on, and current news is being broadcast aloud. Hira heard the news of Orhun Demirhanlı's release decision. Hira dropped the glass in her hand on the floor. Hira is confused, worried, and afraid. Hira's fear is the fear of losing her daughter. There are emotional moments happening in the Demirhanlı house. Orhun is in his office and his man enters the room. The man told Orhun, "We found Hira." The man told Orhun that Hira lives in Istanbul, is married, and has a daughter. Orhun was shocked by what he heard. However, Orhun would go to Hira's location with enthusiasm. On the other hand, Hira is in the room, and after some time, Yeka entered the room. Yeka told Hira that the news of Orhun's release is true. Yeka asked Hira, "What decision have you made?" Hira told Yeka, "Orhun kicked me out of his life. I don't think he'll call me." Yeka asked Hira, "What will you do if Orhun wants to meet you again?" Hira remembered past moments when Orhun expelled her and forced her to abort the baby. Yeka told Hira that I will always take care of you. Yeka told Hira, I haven't forgotten the promise I made to you. We already made an agreement with you before. Yeka told Hira that the little girl named Sahra is our daughter. Yeka is the father of Hira's daughter, named Sahra, and he loves her like a daughter. Yeka clearly told Hira that he would not give up on Sahra. Hira told Yeka that Orhun would definitely not find out that he has a child. Yeka wanted Hira to wear the ring on the table. Hira and Yeka need to do this to make Orhun believe in their marriage. Yekta's phone rang, and he left the room to talk. After some time, Sahra entered the room and said she wanted to play with Hira. Yeka is on the phone with a man on the balcony of his house. Yeka is a man who does illegal things. Yeka put a plan into action to deceive his business partners. Yeka began giving new instructions to his man. On the other hand, Orhun is in the garden of the house and talks to Nursha on the phone. Nursha is happy because Orhun has been released from prison. Orhun told Nursha that Hira is married and has a daughter. Orhun told Nursha, I told Hira to start a new life. Orhun told Nursha that I expelled Hira from my life, hoping I wouldn't escape prison. Orhun comforted himself a little by talking to Nursha. Unfortunately, since Nursha left the series, we couldn't hear any speech from Nursha. Minutes passed, and Orhun drove to Hira's street. Orhun doesn't know why he came there and what he should do. At that moment, Hira was playing ball with her little daughter Sahra in the garden of the house. Orhun got out of the car and started observing the garden through the external gate of the house. When Orhun saw Hira again after 6 years, he was fascinated. Hira takes care of her beloved daughter, while Orhun continues spying on the couple. Hira continued to play ball with her daughter. Orhun was deeply saddened by what he saw. Orhun talked to himself and said, I should never have come here. As Orhun was leaving, the girl's ball came to the outer gate. As Hira went to pick up the ball at the outer gate, she found Orhun. On the other hand, a lawyer named Daphne is talking to her older sister in a house. The woman told Daphne that it's good for you that Hira is married and has children. The older sister wants Daphne to be Orhun's lover. By chance, Daphne found the flash memory containing images proving Orhun's innocence. Daphne helps the mother of a man named Korkut. When Korkut's mother died, he found the flash memory containing the video image among the deceased's belongings. The man named Korkut was the loyal villain of Neva, and even the one who kept Perihun captive at home. The last time we saw the scare was while he was being treated in the hospital. During this period, Korkut was imprisoned for his crimes. A lawyer named Daphne collected evidence and information about Korkut and his family for a long time to save Orhun. Thus, Orhun's escape from prison was experienced through this series of events. On the other hand, at Yekta's outer gate, Orhun and Hira continue to look at each other in surprise. Hira said to Orhun, You were released from prison. Orhun said to Hira, You got married. At that moment, Hira started recalling her past memories. In the past, Hira went to Yekta's house as a maid. Hira is talking to Yeka about a business in the garden of the house. Yeka told Hira, Give me your ID card to start the business registration. But Hira didn't want to give Yeka her ID card. Hira hid her identity to hide from the Demirhanli family. As the days passed, Hira continued working as a maid in Yekta's house. While Hira was cleaning the house's garden, one of Yekta's staff men haunted Hira. The man is harassing Hira in the garden of Yekta's house. Hira fought with the man and threw a brick at his head. Yeka saw everything that happened but did not interfere. After Hira calmed down, Yeka approached her and said, You have a lot of courage. I can use this talent. Thus, the bond between Yeka and Hira began to strengthen.
Continuing with the summary of episode 381, at the end of the first part, he was recalling everything that happened to her after she left the hospital, where she successfully tricked Fifi with a fake abortion. She chose to continue her life with the baby she was expecting, alone, leaving the entire Dermal family behind. In the first part, I mentioned that Ira began working at Ekta's house as a maid. Ekta wanted to register her, but Ira refused to hand over her documents because she didn't want him to know that she was the ex-wife of Orhun Dermale, a powerful family. Even so, Ekta hired Ira to work, though without official registration. One day, while Ira was cleaning the garden, another employee of Ekta started harassing her. Ira confronted him and ended up getting injured. Despite this, she fought back and tried to escape, but the man grabbed her at that moment. Ekta arrived and attacked the assailant. At the hospital, After some exams, the doctor informed Hira that her pregnancy was now at risk, and until the baby was born, she couldn't do any physical activities and needed complete rest. Hector told Hira he hadn't known she was pregnant. Hector took her home and began taking care of her. He then proposed a deal. Hector had always dreamed of being a father and wanted to raise her baby as if it were his own. He suggested they get married in a fake marriage, only on paper, so they could both fulfill parental roles, allowing him to achieve his dream. At the same time, Hira would have shelter, food, and a home for her child. With few options, since she needed rest and had no family or support, Hira accepted Hector's generous proposal, which came at just the right time. As soon as Hira returns to her thoughts, we fall right into the moment when Orhun asked, "And did you get married?" Hira shifts her attention and responds, "Yes, I got married." She looked at Orhun with a gaze full of hatred because in her mind he had sent Fifi to help him get rid of the baby in her womb. For that reason, Hira feels a deep anger toward Orhun, believing that at one point he wanted to take her baby away. We know this is not true, but in Hira's mind, this is her reality, and she harbours much resentment toward him. Angrily, she affirms, "Yes, I got married." Orhun then tells Hira that he came there because he wanted to see her. At that moment, Sahra approaches and asks Hira why she hasn't come inside yet and who she is talking to. A few seconds later, Hector arrives and asks Hira if there is a problem. Hira responds to Hector that everything is fine. Hector then picks up Sahra and begins to care for her in front of Orhun, who watches the scene with deep sadness. He wished he could have that life with Hira, and the child could have been his, even without knowing it. Sahra then informs Hector that her ball rolled into the street and that her mother went to get it. Realizing it was already late, Hector tells Sahra they need to go home. In truth, Hector wants to take Hira and Sahra away from Orhun's presence. He places his hand on Hira's waist and, along with Sahra in his arms, leads them back to the mansion. Orhun feels even sadder watching Hector take Hira and the girl into the house, especially when he notices that Hector is touching Hira's waist. This scene is intensely sad for Orhun because not too long ago he had hoped for that life. Orhun watches the scene for a few minutes, and as Hira enters with Hector, it's noticeable that she feels slightly uncomfortable with Hector holding her waist, particularly due to Orhun's gaze. It's clear that the relationship between Hira and Hector is built on trust limitations. Minutes later, Hira, Sahra and Hector sit on the porch of the mansion and begin to chat. Hira is silent, extremely thoughtful. After all, it had been 6 years since she last saw the love of her life. Her hands are trembling and she is very nervous because Orhun's presence shook her. Then Sahra asks Hira who that man was. Hira begins to answer, but at that moment, Hector interrupts, telling Sahra that the man was no one and asking her not to worry, as she would never see him again. Hector sends Sahra to her room, and as soon as the girl leaves, he asks Hira why Orhun was there. Hira cannot answer Hector's questions because she is too nervous. Hector then asks if Orhun came for Sahra. Hira gets a little irritated by the question and responds that Orhun Dermali will never know Sahra as his daughter. She explains to Hector that Orhun had just found out she got married and came to confirm it. Hector, for his part, states that he will never let Orhun take their daughter. He makes it clear that he won't give up custody of Sahra. In fact, Hector is there for the girl, as he apparently loves her. The series does not show Hector having romantic feelings for Hira or wanting her as his wife, but he shows respect and takes care of her since she lives with him. His love, as it seems, is genuine. As soon as he left Hira's house, Orhun went to the beach deep in thought and sad about everything he had just witnessed. He began to recall some moments he had shared with Hira in the past. When he comes back to reality, he feels even more distressed and considers throwing Hira's wedding ring into the sea. But at that moment, he changes his mind and puts the ring back in his pocket. Meanwhile, Hira and Hector are playing with Lego with Sahra on the mansion's veranda. However, Hira can't concentrate on the game because she can't stop thinking about Orhun. This distraction is making Hector quite uncomfortable as he notices that Hira's thoughts are focused on Orhun. His fear is that if Hira decides to go back to him, Orhun will likely assume paternity of the child. In the meantime, Orhun returns to the Dermal mansion. As soon as Fifi sees him, she asks where he was, but Orhun doesn't reveal anything to her. Fifi informs Orhun that a welcome party has been arranged in his honour to celebrate his innocence and release from prison. However, Orhun tells Fifi that he has no interest in attending any party. When he arrives, he is filled with rage and hatred for everything he witnessed. In a moment of reflection, he says to himself that everything they are celebrating is his fault, as he was the one who took Hira out of his life. At that moment, Daphne enters Orhun's office and asks if he is okay, showing concern as she notices that the place is messy and the mirror is broken. However, Orhun doesn't answer Daphne's question and starts muttering to himself that all of this is his fault. Daphne then questioned whether Orhun went to see Ira, but again, he didn't respond. She then mentions that he needs to review some documents to reassume responsibility for the Dermally companies, but Orhun remains silent, ignoring her. Daphne tries to cheer him up, saying that everything will return to normal and that, with time, he will recover. However, Orhun doesn't pay attention to what she says. Even so, Daphne manages to convince him to go to the party organised by Fifi as a welcome. Her goal is to become the future Mrs. Turmoil. Meanwhile, Ira spends time with her daughter, but she is struggling to stay strong and composed as she feels destroyed inside, with an overwhelming urge to cry. After a few moments of holding back her emotions, Ira can no longer resist and the tears begin to roll down her face. Sahra then asks her mother why she is crying. Ira hugs her daughter and says, "Please don't cry because of me." And Hector, watching the scene from afar, murmurs to himself, "I'll do whatever it takes to keep Hira from getting upset." After some time, the day begins to darken and the party organised by Fifi comes to an end. Daphne and her older sister are talking about the event, and Daphne's sister advises her to do everything she can to win Orhun's heart. She warns that if another woman enters the picture, it will be very difficult for Daphne to convince him to marry her. Daphne becomes nervous and anxious at her sister's words, knowing they are true, but she has no idea how to approach Orhun's heart. She realises that he still loves Ira. Meanwhile, Orhun gazes at the garden, fixing his eyes on the spot where the plant symbolising his love for Ira once stood, the plant of sensations that the old man from the cabin gave to her when they both helped him. At the time, the man told Ira that as long as that plant and... However, Fifi had the plant removed as soon as Orhun was imprisoned and Ira left the mansion. Now, the seedling no longer exists. At that moment, Fifi approaches Orhun, having noticed that he is sad. Fifi then asks Orhun what he is celebrating and why he is so sad. Orhun responds that he is having trouble adjusting to his new life outside of prison. Fifi tries to comfort him, saying that with time he will get used to the new people in his life and that where he now sees darkness, soon everything will become a new light. She adds that as long as he doesn't lose the joy of life, everything will work out. Meanwhile, Ira is sitting in her room, very sad, thinking about the moment she reunited with her love after so long. Hector knocks on the door and enters to talk to Ira. He asks if she is okay and if he can talk to her for a minute. Ira replies that she would like to be alone, but Hector says he just wants to support her. Meanwhile, Orhun moves from the garden to his room, reliving memories of the time he spent with Ira. He sees her in every corner of the house, like as if she were there, talking to him. In his mind, he visualizes her in a white dress, smiling at him. Orhun ends up spending the whole night thinking about Ira, unable to sleep. And when the day breaks, he starts thinking that he can no longer live in that house, as it is filled with memories of him and Ira. Orhun goes to the mansion's living room, where Fifi is sitting, and asks her where she put the photos of Ira that she took down from the house's frames. Fifi replies that she put all the photos in a box and hid them about 6 years ago. Orhun then says he plans to leave and travel for a long period. Fifi comments that travelling will be good for him and asks how long. Meanwhile, Ira is in the garden, very sad. Hector approaches and says he would like to take a walk with her so that she can feel a little better. At first, Ira hesitates to accept the offer, but at a restaurant, Orhun and Daphne are talking. Daphne asks Orhun which country he has decided to travel to. Orhun replies that he doesn't know yet where he's going. Daphne, trying to help, suggests that Sri Lanka is beautiful this time of year. Orhun then asks Daphne if she has already calculated her fees. Orhun tells Daphne that he needs to pay her. Daphne then reveals that she has decided not to charge legal fees and asks Orhun to consider her work a gift. Without hesitation, Orhun pulls a check from his pocket and tells Daphne to write down the amount she wants for the services rendered. He emphasizes that she is a family friend and that he is aware of this, but work is work, and therefore he needs to pay her. Daphne, with a smile, writes a very low amount on the check and hands it to Orhun. He insists on paying the real amount, but she reaffirms that this is the only amount she wants to receive. Without further insistence, Orhun accepts and pays Daphne only what she asked for. Meanwhile, Ekta and Ira decide to have lunch at a restaurant. To their surprise, they end up choosing the same place where Daphne and Orhun are. As soon as they arrive at the restaurant, Ira reminds Ekta that the first time they had lunch there was to celebrate Sahra's birthday. Ekta, in turn, replies that he brought her to this place in the hope that she would feel a little better. However, just as Ekta was about to enter the restaurant, his phone rings. He steps away to answer the call. Ira ends up entering the restaurant alone, and as soon as she steps inside, she spots Orhun. Both are surprised to see each other. The reservation was made under Ekta's name, and their table is right next to where Orhun and Daphne are seated. What a coincidence! Ira tries to switch tables, but unfortunately she can't, as the other tables are already reserved for other customers. Thus, Ira and Orhun end up sitting close to each other. When Ekta arrives at Ira's table, he is shocked to realise that Orhun is sitting with his back against hers. The tension is palpable. Ira, feeling uncomfortable, tells Ekta that she tried to change tables, but there was no availability. She then asks if she should leave. Ekta, however, responds that his friend Sedet should be arriving soon to talk, so they can't leave. As time passes, the food starts to be served at both tables. Daphne, noticing the situation, asks Orhun for permission to go to the bathroom. At that moment, Ekta's phone rings and he steps away from the table to answer the call. With that, Ira and Orhun are left alone at their tables, back to back, in a silence filled with unspoken emotions. Orhun then tells Ira that he is leaving for a faraway place, and thus it will be as if he never left prison. Ira, in turn, responds that it doesn't matter because he has already left her life. Ira stands up and tries to grab her purse, but it ends up getting stuck on Orhun's chair. She begins struggling to free it and leave the place. Orhun, noticing that she is trying to grab a purse that got caught on his chair, stands up and hands it to her. At that moment, Daphne exits the bathroom and sees Orhun and Ira side by side. From a distance, she starts to lose her composure. Meanwhile, Ekta is talking with Sedet outside the restaurant. Sedet informs Ekta that the company's partners have found out that they funded the ship with the purpose of stealing the gold. Ekta then starts to get nervous, aware that his partners are dangerous. He tells Sedet that he needs to flee as soon as possible and mentions that one of his partners is already in the process of finding out the truth. Ekta explains to Sedet that he needs to escape because otherwise his partners will kill him, as well as his family. Sedet then leaves. At that moment, Ira approaches to talk to Ekta. He, in turn, tells Ira that he needs to flee because his life is in danger. Ekta reveals that he spoke to the mansion's maid and that she has already packed their bags, bringing Sahra along with the luggage so they can head straight to the airport. Ira questions Ekta about why they are fleeing and says that if he escapes, he will be considered guilty. But Ekta, deeply worried, doesn't care about what she says. He then tells Ira to get in the car. At that moment, two armed men try to force Ekta into another vehicle. Ekta then pulls a gun from one of the men's waist and starts shouting for them to back off. He then flees, leaving Ira behind. The men start running after Ekta, while a third man, who was with the other two, tries to force Ira into the criminal's car.
But at that moment, Orhun was leaving the restaurant with Daphne and saw Ira being forced into the car. Without hesitation, he moved to help Ira and, in an impulse, punched the man, leaving him stunned. At that instant, Ira exclaimed that her daughter was in danger. Orhun then took Ira to his house in his car. Upon arriving, Ira began searching for Sarah in all the rooms but couldn't find her. Meanwhile, a man appeared and started attacking Ira. But at that critical moment, Orhun arrived again and began beating the attacker. The man then fell to the ground, incapacitated by Orhun's blows. Orhun, worried, tried to calm Hira, who was in a state of shock. At that moment, the maid of the house arrived with Sahra, revealing that she had hidden the girl in the garden when she noticed the presence of the criminals. She then handed Sahra over to Hira. As soon as Hira saw her daughter, she hugged her desperately, thanking God that she was safe. However, at that moment, the man who had fallen unconscious on the floor woke up. He pulled a gun from his waist and aimed it at Hira. In a matter of seconds, a shot was fired. It was impossible to know who had been hit by the bullet. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so yet. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.